Financial wellness. Reach out to them for advice at 855-DON-GINO. And now back to your hosts, Don Getling and Gino Fronti.
Well, we're going to start off by thanking you for listening every Saturday, 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. to the Don and Gino Real Estate and Finance Show, and so much more. We started off with real estate and finance over 6 years ago because we were going through the mortgage meltdown and the crisis for everybody. And we basically started the show to help a lot of you with giving you advice of what to do based on your particular scenario, and we combine that with as many professionals in every department we can think of that affects your life one way or another, because financially or emotionally or personally, these things affect you in different ways, and you need different professionals depending on that particular situation. So we surround ourselves by such great professionals, and we found those professionals by interviewing them right here on this show for over 6 years. We had every week we got an opportunity to interview top professionals that were either referred to us or we heard about or did our research for, and then they backed it up with quality work, being accountable to us, being accountable to you, being accountable to Santa Clarita, and just being good people. And we have one of the best here, one of our good friends, Lisa ODOM with Poole and Shaffrey. She's our trust attorney, but you do so much more, Lisa, because this is important, because if it's just trust, people go, oh, I'll just go to LegalZoom. But There's so much more. We learned because Lisa's helped us out with our trust, thank goodness, because we blew it off, put it off. Hey, have you? I bet you have. I bet most of you out there going, oh, I don't need a trust.
I don't have an estate.
I don't have an estate.
Or even worse, I have a will.
Yeah.
That's even worse, is what we've learned. Yeah, it's actually much, much worse if you have a will scribbled on a napkin.
So I am backtracking a little bit because I want you to listen to why you want to pay attention to Lisa and why the show is important and why estate planning is imperative to protecting your family. And we were just talking about a client that you were helping out with probate, ended up going to us to help them out with a loan. And then I asked the question during break, hey, why was she in probate? Because I know we wouldn't be in probate. Well, I might right now. I'm finishing mine up. Mine got a little messy, but we're fixing that. Gino wouldn't have to.
Nope.
But why was she in probate, Lisa?
Well, she was in probate for lack of planning.
Mm-hmm.
Really what it comes down to is, in that particular situation, there was a business. The business was not properly planned for. Unfortunately, there are some lawyers who are very well versed in business law, like myself, and there are others that are not. And so when you're planning...
Wait, you're a trust attorney. How does business law come into effect?
Right. I'm also, I actually, my practice area is, obviously my firm is a full service firm, but
Poole and Shaffrey.
Poole and Shaffrey is a full service firm, but I specialize in business, real estate, and estate planning, trust administration, and probate. So
is that all?
That's it. No big deal. But what it comes down to is that there's so much overlap in all these issues. I mean, what people take for granted is that your business is usually one of the most significant assets that a family has if they own their own business. And it provides for their family. Obviously, in order for it to provide for your family, it must be a fairly significant asset. And people dismiss that asset as not being important. And unfortunately, as I mentioned, with all the widows I had last year, the businesses ended up being the biggest issues for each of them, and almost every one of them had a business. So it was really interesting to see it on the backside that way and see how each of them transpired and how they transpired differently. All of them had been stay-at-home mom situations, and all of them are very bright women. And it was very interesting to see how each handled the business and how some of those businesses were not things that the wife had any interest in, and some of them were things that there might have been a child who could continue the business going. Right. There may have been, the spouse may have been able to keep the business, but each family had a very unique dynamic, and seeing how little planning was done on the business side was actually disheartening. It's a huge part of my practice when I'm working with my business client or my estate planning clients who have businesses. We talk about how we're going to plan for them, and not always do we draft a buy-sell agreement right away, but we at least put the carrot there so we can start discussing it, so that when time comes and people are ready to think about what's going to happen if I retire, what happens if I become disabled. The reality is, for the lack of planning, is that nobody wants to think about death or dying, or even worse, incapacity. And incapacity might even be worse than death or dying. So let's face it, if you have died, you're not here to worry about it. But if you're incapacitated... I
laugh, but it's so true.
It's so true.
And no, I wonder if that's kind of in the back of somebody's head. You know, I just won't have to do it, but you really can't put your head in the sand.
No, you can't put your head in the sand, because you have family who's left trying to figure out, Who are our vendors? How do we keep this business going? And the big mistake.
Why are they our vendors, right? Because I'm
Exactly.
sure, and I don't want to speak out of turn here, but I'm sure that if I'm a vendor that's been trying to get into this company for quite some time, and I now know that the person that's been saying no to me for 10 years is gone,
Right.
I'm going to go prey on that new CEO no matter who
Absolutely.
they are. I'm going to go attack that new CEO and say, this is why you need to use me, and it might sound really attractive.
And it's interesting. You're absolutely correct. There are very unscrupulous business people out there who do things like that to people who they perceive as not having knowledge. The other issue is in certain industries, and I'm going to unfortunately call out the construction industry in particular. If you happen to be the widow or widower of someone in the construction industry, that's a very difficult industry. And if you have no knowledge of, the various materials that are used in the construction or how things are working in that particular industry, you might be completely, basically cut short on monies that you're owed. Or people.
Well, I would imagine, Lisa, and if you just tune in, you're here on the Don and Gino Real Estate and Finance Show every Saturday, 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. We're here with Lisa ODOM, basically trust, probate, business, real estate law attorney with Poole and Shaffrey, and our go-to for so many reasons. And she's explaining the importance of planning. And I know you're probably going, yeah, I hear it all the time, but these are real-life examples locally right here in Santa Cruz that she's dealt with like 6, 7 widows just last year. And where the proper structuring, say it's a construction business, the owner, say it's the husband, knows that the wife knows nothing about the construction industry. Right. It's imperative to have that property set up, meaning who may take it over, if it's going to be taken over, if it's going to be sold, what's going to happen. God forbid something happens.
Right. So here's my situation, right? So we know that my wife knows nothing about mortgage and that it would take a decade to learn anything about mortgage, and you don't want her to be your business partner. And so ultimately, for someone like me, a large life insurance policy is a better solution, right?
Well,
so that's what we have to determine for each particular person. What's a better solution for the exit strategy?
Right. And for you, buy-sell insurance was a possibility because of your age. It's not always a possibility. And so then we have to talk about other issues.
Luckily, we got that.
Yep.
Right. It's not always a possibility. In fact, for many partners, because unfortunately people don't plan ahead. So we'll see people who are now in their late 60s who are starting to think about retirement or backing out. And they're like, oh, well, how am I going to get this cashed out one day? You've got this asset. How am I going to deal with this? And how is my family going to be protected? Because this asset has been supporting my family, my wife or my significant other 20, 30 years. And now all of a sudden you're looking at a balance sheet and a profit and loss statement and you're thinking, I did okay for myself for the last 30 years. But how am I going to liquidate it? How am I going to make it an asset that can actually be used by my surviving spouse and or my children to help them continue on the lifestyle that we've all grown accustomed to because of my labor?
Or is my business saleable?
And that's another question.
But yeah. I mean, think about it. I mean, for us, and we have a decent asset that protects both our families and makes decent money for us. And if one of us, God forbid, something happens, it would be challenging for both of us to carry on the same direction we have. But what's nice is we were able to put one form of protection, let alone the agreement we still have to fine tune, which is what happens for this or that scenario, is the fact that for less than $200 a month, we have protected each other.
Right.
I mean, it's ridiculous.
Insurance can be such a critical and helpful component of this kind of planning. It really just takes creativity, but it also takes someone who's listening to, if I have an estate planning client in with me, I'm asking about the nature of their assets. And one of the biggest misconceptions I have with my clients are they own a business and they think that if they die, oh, well, the business is done. Well, it doesn't work that way. First of all, just the basics of it, basic mechanics is somebody's got to close out that business and you have to have authority to close out that business. Well, remember that if your assets exceed $150,000 and they're not held in joint tenancy or in trust, then they'd have to be probated. Well, people often dismiss the business because it's an intangible, because you don't. I mean, the business is there, but it's so intangible in that it's represented by a piece of paper.
Yeah, you don't think about going to probate.
Oh, yeah, but we have to. I just probated 2 businesses for the client that had to refer to you. So it happened.
More good reasons to make sure
Yeah.
you talk to Lisa. All right, we're only halfway through the show. Hopefully, you've already gone, oh, I need to listen to more about this. This is going to change my life, my partner's life, or my family's life. So make sure you stay tuned because we have Lisa ODOM with Pool and Shaffery. Great information. It's going to change your life. It's already changed ours. So make sure you stay tuned for the second half of the Don Gino Real Estate and Finance Show.